Hey guys, and welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about flex culture, more specifically the future of flex culture following the global situation that we've been in for a while now. So before we get into it, make sure that you are subscribed and remember to leave a like on the video if you do enjoy it. What is flex culture? Now, flexing is generally equivalent to showing off, and normally when you think of flexing, it's of material things like designer clothes or nice cars, but you can flex pretty much anything. Like, you could flex your friends, your family, your education, your wealth, your physique, pretty much anything could be a flex. There aren't really any limits. Flexing kind of developed from celebrities showing off things like their homes, their designer outfits, their jewelry collections in shows like MTV Cribs and on the red carpet, and now with the rise of internet fame we see a lot more flexing going on a lot more often on our timeline. One of the most prominent factors in the rise of flex culture is hip-hop and rap music. A lot of hip-hop and rap songs talk about, you know, how many girls the artist gets, the amount of money that they have, the car that they drive, the drugs that they do, the expensive alcohol that they can afford to drink, and that's kind of what a lot of the songs focus on, and that's them kind of flexing on the people who are listening. You know, look at how much I have. The term flex has been around since the 90s. I don't really know where it actually came from, but Ice Cube was using it in songs back in the 90s, so it definitely goes back to at least then. I'm not sure how far it dates back in terms of being used to refer to showing off and not just like flexing your muscles. Flexing is a big part of social media now. A lot of people who gain large followings flex on their followers, for example, by showing off their clothes or their perfect bodies or their cars or pretty much anything that they have acquired from their job as an influencer. And most flexing derives from having money, whether it be showing off all the amazing places that you can travel to because of your higher than average income, or showing off all the things that you can buy with that income. The root of most flexes nowadays is having money. And this money-driven concept comes from the idea that having money makes you successful, and so showing off your expensive things shows to other people that you are successful. Even flexes that don't concern money can be about success. For example, posting about your degree certificate or your graduation. However, most people wouldn't consider that flexing. It's more just like celebrating, and Urban Dictionary defines flexing as showing off your valuables in a non-humble way. So making one post about something probably wouldn't be considered flexing. It's more when you're deliberately showing off something so that people will admire the fact that you have it. So flexing happens a lot on YouTube by people like Jeffree Star, Rice Gum, the Ace family, who all like to show off their expensive belongings, whether it be a pair of shoes, a house, or a massive fuck-off pink closet.
No one's coming in.
No one needs a closet that big or that pink. For these people, the fact that they are rich and that they show off about their things is kind of an essential part of their personalities and their channels on YouTube. So people watch them because they find it interesting to see how the other half live, and it kind of gives young kids an indication of the sort of money that you can make from YouTube, which I think is part of the reason why 1/3 of children now want to become bloggers or vloggers. Like, obviously there's the creative side too, there's a lot more flexibility in that kind of job, but the money and the fame that these people have with predominantly young audiences is definitely an influence on how kids watching them perceive YouTube, and specifically the kind of career and income that YouTube can provide you. So YouTube money is something that seems to be flexed a lot more than anything else. People who came up on YouTube from nothing and ended up being super rich sometimes get lost in their wealth and kind of lose touch with reality, seemingly because their success has come so thick and so fast. The Ace family is a very prominent example of this, like complaining about the fact that they have to walk all the way downstairs from their gym to get to their bedroom. Like, that's really not a problem, but they act like it is. That's not to discredit their success. I'm sure that every creator who makes it, whether we like them or not, has worked hard to get where they are, and not all top creators flex on their fans. Jenna Marbles, for example, lives in a beautiful house. She had been doing YouTube, R.I.P. Jenna. She had been doing YouTube for 10 years and obviously had made a lot of money from it because she has 20 million subscribers, but she never ever showed off about her wealth to her fans, even though she had that same success that people like Jeffree Star have. And a lot of flexing comes from having like way more of something than any ordinary person would have. For example, instead of having one car, you have 10. Like, no one needs 10 cars, but that is something that like most people would love to have a collection of, but they just can't afford to. It begs the question, do people actually like the designer items that they buy, or are they only buying them because they feel the need to in order to demonstrate to their followers that they are wealthy? We as an audience are aware now that most YouTubers with over kind of 1 million subscribers are making a very decent wage from their videos, from AdSense and from sponsorships, and we don't need them to wear Gucci in order to tell us that they're making decent money from YouTube. And a lot of creators don't, the vast majority don't, but it's the select few who make it to the top who are posting so often about their spending, about their material items. There's videos like shot with me at the Louis Vuitton store and they'd buy the entire store. And I don't know if it's like a self-confidence thing. They feel better about themselves if everyone knows that they're rich, and they wouldn't feel so secure in their wealth if they weren't showing it off. Like, I don't know, give me 10 million subscribers and then I'll let you know. And a lot of the designer items that people buy to flex are the ones that are covered in the brand's logo. For example, like the Louis Vuitton monogram. It kind of backs up that they're only buying them to show them off. Like, if you were buying things that you genuinely liked, surely you'd have more stuff that didn't have the logo on than stuff that does. Like, the law of probabilities means that actually most of the items you were buying would be the non-logo ones, because the brand makes more non-logo than logo stuff, especially in like normal clothes. But for like handbags and shoes and stuff, more often than not, they do have the logo on. And it's like people buy designer thinking that they're flexing their amazing style, but actually money can't buy you the ability to put an outfit together. If something looks ugly, it doesn't matter how much it cost, people are going to say it looks ugly. If you wouldn't buy the item without the brand name on, don't buy it. Money cannot buy you a sense of style, so don't expect that if you wear all Gucci that you are instantly going to become a style icon. And I think most creators who are well known but not like absolutely massive, maybe around like the 1 to 5 million subscribers mark, they generally do the same as everyone else does, which is they buy themselves something nice, maybe something designer, as a treat, maybe something they've had their eye on for a long time, and they don't overindulge just for the sake of having designer items. Granted, they can afford to indulge more often, but it's not a habit, it's a treat. And the more designer stuff you buy, the less special the purchase is. And so I think when someone starts to buy things for the purpose of flexing, it kind of snowballs and you have to buy more and more in order to feel satisfied. Kind of like when you build up tolerance to alcohol. Like, the first time that you have a drink, you're going to get a lot more drunk than you would if you drank the same amount 2 years down the line when you've been drinking more often up until that point. Like, your tolerance builds up over time, and I guess that's the same that happens with buying designer stuff. The more designer stuff you buy, the more you need to buy in order to feel like you're treating yourself. The more you flex, the more extravagant the flex needs to become in order for you to feel secure. People have gone as far as to rent designer shoes, bags, expensive cars in order to take photos in them or with them, just to make themselves look rich. And some have even rented out private jets purely to take pictures in them. And this mentality of needing to look rich in order to feel validated on social media is very damaging, especially to the children and young teens who often follow these influencers, because what it says to them is that if you can't afford that stuff, then you aren't successful, which is not true, because the people who are flexing it can't afford it themselves. They have to rent it out instead. And it's really sad to me that it's gotten to the point where wearing designer shoes for a picture is so important that you need to rent them in order to take that picture. Like, you can't take that picture unless you are wearing designer shoes, so you have to rent them instead. The more that people flex, the more pressure there is to have expensive items in order to feel worthy and feel like you're successful in life, when actually success has nothing to do with the shoes that you wear or the car that you drive. It's about achieving your own personal goals and bettering yourself. So one way that mainly beauty and lifestyle influencers flexed on us for a long time was through brand trips, and these influencers would go to amazing destinations like Fiji or Australia or Mexico, fully paid for by the brand, and they would receive luxurious gifts as a thank you for their participation. And brand trips were all the rage back in like 2016, 2017. Every brand wanted to run a trip because of the great publicity. Every influencer wanted to be picked to go on a trip. But actually what we know now is that those trips weren't all they were cracked up to be. So many influencers have talked about like the clickiness of the trips, the fact that the people with the most followers would get the best rooms, the best treatment, and everyone who was on the trip would be super nice to them because they wanted to be in with like the popular group. And if you didn't get into that group, you felt very left out. And there was a particular problem on certain trips with racism. The black girls felt like they were only there to fill a diversity quota, and they ended up in segregated rooms where the rooms for the black influencers would be a lot less luxurious than the ones for the white influencers, and they were only kind of there to show that the brand was diverse rather than because they were actually valued as influencers. And I think brand trips are a good example of how hollow flexing can actually be. So these girls were posting photos from locations that most people could never afford to go to, receiving tons of luxury gifts from brands, including like free products from the brand, but also random gifts. Like I know Tarte once gifted their influencers Roombas on a trip, which bit random, but I mean it's a nice gift, so they obviously took it. And it seemed like they were having the best time ever when actually they were hating every minute of it. And brand trips have obviously stopped now because of the pandemic, although a few influencers have said that some brands are still trying to recruit people to go on trips to Mexico, but they didn't name and shame any brands, so I don't know who that was. But even before the pandemic, influencers were less interested in going on these trips because of how they felt while they were there. So although all these influencers were flexing these trips, actually they were having a horrible time, but they were trying to make it look good for their followers so that their followers would be envious. And they obviously couldn't speak out about how horrible the trip was while they were on it because the brand would have probably made them pay their own bill at the end of it. But it is telling that people are still willing to flex something that they hate just because it looks good for a picture. And it does make you wonder whether this happens more often than we realise, whether people actually enjoy wearing Gucci or Prada or Louis Vuitton, or whether they are just wearing it because they think it makes them look rich. Like they actually hate what they're wearing, but they're wearing it because they feel like they have to wear something designer in order to fit in or look good on Instagram. And they feel like they have to do certain things to maintain a certain image that they want to create for themselves of this luxury lifestyle that they live. But back to brand trips, and now that people know how not fun they are, I don't think people are really interested in seeing them anymore, even after the pandemic. Lots of people have lost their jobs or have gone on furlough and have had financial difficulties throughout the last year, and I think this is going to have a huge impact on how flexing is perceived on social media. When you have been through a global tragedy such as a pandemic where so many people have suffered and gone through unprecedented struggles that aren't their fault, the last thing that you want to see on your Instagram feed is someone posing in front of a Ferrari that they just bought. People don't want to be flexed on by rich people at a time when most ordinary people have had their entire lives turned upside down by something completely out of their control. People who could afford small luxuries before the pandemic might now have to be saving all of their money for food. People who barely scraped by might not be able to pay their rent on time or their water bill or their electricity bill, and yet some influencers have it so kind of ingrained into their brain that they have to show everyone how rich they are that they have continued to flex their wealth throughout this pandemic when everyone else is struggling. And it really shows how out of touch people can get, especially when they're still flexing, when they are aware that all of their followers are struggling right now. And it's really telling of how much people value the image of being rich, of being an obnoxious person, when they can't actually stop themselves from showing off when a global crisis happens. And I don't think brand trips will return after the pandemic for this reason, or at least they won't be well received, because people who've suffered a massive loss during the pandemic, who maybe used to go on holiday and now can't afford to, aren't going to be interested in seeing how influencers are unaffected and are back on their luxury holidays receiving free products that they don't need, as if the last year never happened. Like, we've already seen that people are ready and raring to hit back at influencers trying to shove luxury holidays down their throat this year, which of course was entirely tone deaf on the part of the influencer.
At the time, she claims she was able to travel as it was an essential work trip to provide sunny content for her followers.
A particular example of tone deaf flexing that I want to mention for this year is influencers flying out to Dubai when the UK went into its third lockdown. Many people weren't happy about this because the influencers claimed that they were out there for work, and then they posted a ton of pictures of them on the beach, in a bikini, at parties and clubs and restaurants, just having a generally normal good time while everyone in the UK was being locked at home. And they all pretty much booked like the last flights out. so that they could escape the lockdown whilst the rest of the ordinary people followed the rules and stayed at home. Like, one girl even decided to go on This Morning and embarrass herself completely by claiming that she needed to be out in Dubai for work, as it was her job to keep her followers motivated by posting content from the gyms, and because the gyms were closed in the UK, she had to go to Dubai to do it instead.
So obviously during the second lockdown, I was really struggling. As the third lockdown was coming in, obviously because I'm a business, because I'm a PT, and I had this idea and I could not be bothered. Like, I shouldn't really be seeing it.
For reference, she had 12,000 followers and had to private her account after that incident because it was so badly received. And a lot of influencers, particularly those from Love Island, who don't really have anything special to offer apart from the fact that they were on Love Island, ended up losing followers from this, and especially losing the respect of their fans, because it felt like they were flexing their wealth and their luxury lifestyle to their followers, who were all locked inside in the freezing cold in probably the worst situation we've been in yet, because everyone's mental health just took an absolute plummet when we got put back into lockdown again. And then they're off to Dubai and it's like, look how much of a good time I'm having. And it's like, great, good for you, I don't care. Laura Anderson is a great example of someone who has lost touch with reality, because she posted an Instagram story complaining about how hard it is to be an influencer and receive all this backlash while she was in Dubai.
Sorry, I don't know what I'm getting upset. It's just sort of that whole situation has probably been like the hardest thing that I've sort of had to deal with, because, you know, obviously everyone gets bad press. I've just never really had it that bad before, and it was just so difficult to explain and sort of stick up for myself, because I understand the whole, you know, pandemic. Like, I'm not, you know, some silly little girl kind of thing. But yeah, it was really, really hard, and it still goes on now.
Like, how are you going to sit in a luxury hotel and complain to all your followers who are struggling through another lockdown that your life is so hard and that they should all feel sorry for you because of all this backlash? Like, no, they're the people giving you the backlash. You're being a selfish twat. I'm not going to feel sorry for you because you were selfish and decided that lockdown rules didn't apply to you and therefore you deserved a holiday. Whilst all the peasants are stuck at home. You don't deserve pity for that. And it's delusional that you really believed you were going to get a positive response from that story. And it's funny though, because they were all claimed that they were out there for work, but as soon as the UK announced it was shutting its borders to flights from Dubai, most of them came straight back. Really telling that your work can be done from home when the borders are closed, but has to be done from Dubai when we go into a lockdown. Interesting. And I think based on the reception to these trips, flex culture is going to change pretty significantly in the next year or so. Rappers and hip-hop artists probably won't stop flexing in their songs just because it's an integral part of what they tend to rap about, but that's not something that people really take that seriously or read into, so I don't think there'll be any changes there. On social media, however, people are growing tired of being flexed on, and the pandemic has just kind of accelerated that annoyance. People just aren't interested in supporting influencers who can't detach themselves from the luxury lifestyle that being an influencer has given them in order to truly understand the issues that are facing the majority of people right now. It's starting to become very transparent who has been blinded by money, and there's such a wide choice of influencers to follow nowadays that those who have become obsessed with their lifestyle and material items can be unfollowed, and you can find someone who is much more grounded to follow instead. Like, there's also the issue of overconsumption. So flexing encourages people to buy tons of expensive things in order to show off their wealth, even if they will never get the chance to use or wear all of that stuff. Like, there's closet tours of the rich and famous on YouTube where they have so many clothes that it's impossible that they have worn any of them more than once. This lifestyle of buying things and never wearing them feeds into the fast fashion problem right now, because people who aspire to be like these people, particularly influencers in fashion who are always posting different outfits, don't have the money to spend on a ton of designer items, so instead they turn to places like PLT or Boohoo or Misguided that are terrible for the environment and are highly unethical in order to recreate that massive collection of clothes that these influencers have. And it encourages people to buy like a new outfit for every occasion, which they don't need, and to never post a picture in the same outfit, always be dressed up, always be wearing something expensive. And for the average person, that lifestyle is impossible unless you spend every last penny that you have on cheap fashion websites in order to attain a constant stream of new clothes. People are starting to catch on to the unethical practices of fast fashion, and more people are looking to shop sustainably where they can. And for anyone who's looking to change their shopping habits, I would very highly recommend Depop as a starting place, because you can get pretty much any item from any fast fashion brand on there, brand new with tags, for less than the retail price. Sustainable fashion is a trend as of right now, so I can only hope that it sticks around, and instead of flexing unethically made designer bags, because most designers do use exploitative practices to make their super expensive items, I hope that people will instead start flexing their sustainable shopping and their sustainably sourced clothing in order to encourage others to do the same, to do their bit to help the planet out. Okay, so that is all that I have to say about flex culture and the future of flexing. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, leave a comment with any thoughts you might have. Remember to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and I will hopefully see you guys in the next one. Bye guys!